Right, so let's talk a little bit about comments. A comment is simply a line that is ignored by the Python interpreter when your code is run, or in this case, ignored by Jupyter Notebook whenever the cell is processing. So why do we want to comment out a line? Well, it allows us to do things like leave documentation, leave information or explanations, leave metadata. Leave a description, leave information about the author or the date that something was last updated. Of course, in the context of Jupyter Notebook, we can also leave comments. We can create, for example, a markdown cell and then just write within it. But remember, this is technically within the Python language. So the Python language knows whenever it sees a comment to ignore everything that follows it on that given line. So for example, if I have a valid Python expression like 1 plus 1, if I execute this cell with Shift Enter, we're going to get the output. Python is going to calculate 1 plus 1 to be 2. That's the very last thing that's calculated in the cell, so that's what's going to be output. In order to create a comment, I place a hashtag symbol in front of the line, and it blocks out or nulls out everything that follows it. So if I move to the beginning of this line and add a hashtag, which is Shift 3 on most keyboards, you'll notice the entire line will sort of get this muted gray or green look, and that indicates that it's being ignored. So if I execute this line right now, you're going to see we're not going to get any output, because as soon as Python sees the hashtag, it says, I'm going to ignore that line completely and move on to the next one. So here's another example. If I put a line here like 2 plus 2, and then below, I put a comment and 3 plus 3. Once again, Python is going to ignore any line that has a comment. So it's going to ignore this, it's going to ignore this, which means 2 plus 2 is the last expression that is evaluated in the cell, which means that's what Jupyter Notebook is going to output. We're going to C4. All right. And why do you use comments? Again, you use it to write descriptions, to write notes. So I highly recommend you use comments inside the course in order to explain things to yourself as you're moving along. And the benefit of leaving them as Python comments is you can always copy and paste them into a plain Python file and they'll continue to work. So for example, right here, I can add a comment like solve really complex mathematical expression using Python. All right. Obviously, it's worth leaving comments for things that are a little bit more difficult to understand, but you get the gist, all right? So that is comments in Python. You just simply put a hashtag. The other cool thing is you can actually put the hashtag after a valid line of code, because the hashtag marks the point at which Python is going to stop processing that line. So for example, if I take this first line right here and I move it to the end, that's totally fine. It's only what comes after the hashtag that is ignored. So Python is still going to be able to process 2 plus 2 here and give an output of 4. All right, that's a quick introduction to comments, so I'll see you in the next lesson.